Welcome to Lou's Pausibilities, where we take a break from the bad news to look at stories of real people facing real-life challenges. You'll meet some friends of mine who have survived and thrived, sometimes in the face of great odds and seemingly insurmountable obstacles. Their stories have motivated and inspired me, and I hope that they will you as well. May they give you glimmers of hope to keep believing and keep receiving the best that life has to offer. So come, grab a cup of coffee or a glass of good old sweet tea, and let's pause and ponder the positive possibilities that await us all. Our show today is with Kenny Anderson, who is the Multicultural Affairs Director for the City of Huntsville Mayor's Office. Kenny's a bridge builder. He served many years as a counselor at both Oakwood University and Calhoun Community College. Kenny builds bridges religiously and also racially in his volunteer work and in his job. We are going to take an up-close and personal look at Kenny's life, including his background, where he came from, and a very painful chapter of his life. Let's start with your job here as the Multicultural Affairs Officer for the city. Tell us a little bit about what you do.
I have the most fantastic job in the city. I get a chance to meet many different people doing lots of great things in what I think is one of the greatest cities, not just in the region and in the States, but on the planet. And I get a chance to be a part of that every single day across a spectrum of possibilities. We're focusing on education, we're focusing on employment, we're focusing on housing, we're focusing on entertainment, we're focusing on the broad spectrum of opportunities that people have to live here in our community.
I know that race relations are an important topic across the country, but give us your take on race relations here in our local community.
We're not unlike any other place that has challenges, but we live in, I think, a community that is always interested in finding ways to work together. And one of the things that I get to do in my job actually is to be a bridge builder, be a connector, be a convener of people who are really trying to improve the quality of life for everyone in our community. And when you talk about quality of life, you're transcending the issue of racial identity.
Absolutely.
Every single person you talk to wants their family to have a good place to live. They want their kids to have a good school. They want to be able to have great access to health care. They want a safe community that's free from crime. It doesn't matter what you look like or who you call yourself. Everybody wants the same thing, and that's one thing that makes my job so great as well.
Not only are you known for being able to cross racial lines, but you were the former chairman of the Interfaith Harmony Council. Tell me a little bit about what that entails.
How do we build bridges across racial diversity, but also how do we build bridges across faith diversity, because everyone doesn't believe the same. And you even have a group of people out there who are not believers. But how do we really come together in our community and work together?
Well, I just love that you are a bridge builder. Now, let me ask you about a different type of bridge. You are a mentor and you bridge the generation gap by mentoring kids. You have done some of that with the 100 Black Men of America's Greater Huntsville chapter. Tell me a little bit about that, please.
This is an international organization made up of about 116, 117 different chapters all over this nation and around the world.
Okay.
And they're groups of young African American men and some older who are committed to making the lives of young African American males have a better quality of life. We talk about things like how can that person develop character, self-esteem, and other kinds of emotionally stabilizing experiences in their life. What about a situation that they don't have the resources that they need? Let's connect them to those resources so that they can have the best opportunity for success going down the line. And the theme of the organization is mentoring across the lifetime. So it's important to think about that as not just an event when you come into their lives, but really a lifetime commitment that people should consider.
So they follow up. It's not just like a one-year term or a 2-year commitment. You're supposed to like help the kid grow on up.
You know, I'm well past that point of high school graduation and college graduation for the first time, but I still need a mentor. I still appreciate the fact that there are men that come alongside me and give me wisdom and understanding and help me know how life really works and gives me the opportunity to make the right choices in life as well so that I can line up the possibility for success.
Now, Kenny, I'm particularly interested in hearing about a story with a youth in the Davis Hills area.
I got a call one day from Dr. Ted Clay at Davis Hills Middle School, who was the counselor at that time.
All right.
And Dr. Clay said, we need somebody to come and talk to our boys. We have a group of what they called at-risk males. He said, we don't have any money to pay you, but we need somebody to do it. And so we decided that I would come over and eat with them at lunchtime on Fridays. But you know, you just can't come and meet a couple of times and expect them to trust you
Right.
and believe in you and find the consistency that they need in life. And so I went for a couple of weeks, and then a month turned into 3 months, and 3 months turned into 6 months. And before you knew it, a year later, I had gone over there to have lunch with them. And these guys today are some of the most amazing success stories around. I've actually run across them at times. I don't always remember who they are, but I recently had one that came to me and said, you don't remember me, do you? I said, I don't. Refresh my memory. He said, Davis Hills. I said, oh my goodness.
And that was one of your students that you
One of
used
my
to
students.
eat lunch with.
He came to the breakfast as a mentor with his nephew. And it's just a wonderful, wonderful story of success. He said, my life hasn't been easy, but thank you for what you did. I mean, it was just amazing.
You used to be a community columnist for the Huntsville Times.
I did that for a year.
What kind of columns did you write?
My favorite ones, there were 3 favorite ones. I wrote about my mom, who I love so dearly, rest in peace, but I wrote about her on Mother's Day. I got married during that time, so I know it was 2001 when that happened. And the column came out on the 4th Sunday, so it actually came out on the day I got married. I wrote the article about, turning in and surrendering my bachelorhood. It was important for me, I think, to kind of process that whole thing of having lived my whole life as a single person, and then here's this magical moment that people think about and look forward to, and it was really a great event. So I wrote about that. And then I wrote about my sister as well. I have a sister that had an unfortunate situation, and she died of AIDS. And I wanted to share that story with the community as well.
What year was it that your sister passed away?
1988.
1988. How did you deal with that stigma of having a family member that passed away with AIDS?
For me, it was a very frightening thing because the vulnerability of my sister, number one, at a time when there was no cure for this disease, you kind of dealt with people the way you could, but the majority of people who got it died. So
Right.
I began seeing her mortality. That was very frightening because my sister was younger than me. This is a dark, ugly disease, HIV, AIDS. And it was one of those things when people would ask me, well, I heard your sister's sick, what's going on? I was in denial. The question that always came up, and it still comes up today, well, how did she get it? The reality is that whoever contracts this disease, it doesn't matter how they contract it.
Right.
What matters is that's a human being who has a family, who is at great risk of losing them if something's not done.
How did you find the healing that was necessary to be able to have this open conversation about it?
I think just talking about it. The other piece was I became an AIDS educator because it helped me learn about it. And the more I learned I didn't have anything to fear. It's about choices people make, and I know my choices. The more you minimize the risks, the less likely you are to contract it. But it's important for me to say to people as I'm talking to them about getting tested that, yes, I've been tested. I've absolutely been tested. I know my status. And when you know your status, you have the best capacity to minimize the transmission of the disease. So all of those things help me move to the place where I am now, where I proudly can stand up and talk about this very painful part of my journey.
Kenny, thank you for having the courage to speak up and to be an AIDS educator in our community. We'll be back in just a few moments to talk about some of Kenny's early days and how he came to work in the mayor's office. Back now with Kenny Anderson from the Mayor's Office for the City of Huntsville, Alabama. Kenny's going to share with us what it was like growing up in New York in the 1970s. And he's also going to share his viewpoint from his many years as a counselor as to how he feels that kids should always have proper boundaries. you grew up in the Lower East Side of Manhattan, correct?
Yes. We did grow up in an area called LaGuardia Houses. It was a public housing project on the Lower East Side of Manhattan. I think it has a lot to do with the person I am today because it was so diverse. You have so many different nationalities that live there. Of course, I had some very, very good Jewish friends. I had some Italian friends, Chinese friends, and other people from Japan. My high school was not far from what they called Little Italy, which was a huge Italian community. It was not far from Chinatown, which was a huge Asian population. And then, of course, there was an area of that particular community called Alphabet City, because it was Avenue A, B, C, and D, and that was a huge Latino population. So, I mean, I was really surrounded by lots and lots of different people and got a chance to go to both elementary school and high school with lots of people who came from lots of places. So it was a very diverse experience.
Did you have any exposure to gangs at all?
You know, people that will know New York in the early 70s would know that that was one of the worst times to live there.
I bet.
And the place was basically overrun with gangs. And it was like east side to west side, north to south. It was gangs everywhere throughout the city. But the South Bronx was notoriously bad for some of the worst gangs. So I had some people that, you know, tried to pick on you from time to time, steal your bus pass, because that's how you got to school, steal your clothes.
Really?
Oh, yeah. There were these leather shoes called Playboys back then, and caps called Kangols, and they would steal your Kangols, they'd steal your Playboys. They would take your books, your bus pass. They might beat you down. They might do some other harm to you. I mean, it was a really, really challenging time to live there.
Right.
It was so bad during my 9th grade year that I told my parents I did not want to go back to that school after that year, and they honored my wishes.
I do not blame you.
Yeah.
What do you think was the driving force that kept you on the proper path?
It was my parents. I mean, it's unquestionably, it was my parents. My dad was a factory worker.
Okay.
Worked for International Flavors and Fragrances in New Jersey. My dad walked to the train station, took the train uptown to the Port Authority bus terminal,
Okay.
took the bus into New Jersey, and the plant was in Teterboro, New Jersey.
Okay.
And it was a short walk from the bus stop to the plant. My dad did that for almost 35 years.
Sounds like quite a commute.
It was quite a commute, but when you think about the work ethic that I watched my father demonstrate. My dad dressed like this in the morning to go to a factory job.
Yay.
Put his clothes on to work in the factory, hang them up, and put his suit back on and come home to his family every single day. And that was powerful. My mom cleaned homes for people, but she was home in the afternoon when I came home from school, and she'd have a sandwich or some soup for her children. I mean, that's the family that we had growing up, and that was the structure we had. We had morning and evening worship. That's how we started our day. And I tell people we didn't have a Beverly Hills existence, but we had love in that family, and that was so important for us. We were held accountable for our behavior. We had chores. We knew where the boundary lines were. My parents were not opposed to spanking. My mom was the primary disciplinarian, but we never wanted my dad to spank, because then we knew something really was bad if he spanked.
Okay.
But mom was the primary disciplinarian, and so there were these boundaries that were established. We knew what was right and what was wrong, and if we did something wrong, we were held accountable for that.
In your 30-plus years as a mental health professional, would you say that there is a lack of proper boundaries for young people in society today?
We have too many undisciplined older people who don't respect boundaries, who don't obey the rules.
You're right.
And so we're constantly demonstrating these bad behaviors to young people and expecting them to do something different. I don't see how that adds up. And so if we're going to be really accountable to young people and give them the best opportunity for success, we've really got to get our act together as older, more mature people to demonstrate what we want to see them do.
Now, Kenny, you were speaking earlier about your parents and your love for your parents, and you just spoke about how they set boundaries for you. And I know that you have done something special to honor them. Would you share that with us, please?
You know, I was an educator for 20 years.
Right.
So I had a really rich academic career here in this community. So I went to the foundation office. I said, what does it take to endow a scholarship? They said, a minimum of $25,000. I said, you're in. So I started doing these jazz fundraisers that have now evolved into something called Have Yourself a Jazzy Little New Year, which takes place every December 31st.
I have seen your ads on social
Yeah,
media. It looks like a lot of fun.
It is a lot of fun, and we do it every year, and it's a great event that really supports the scholarship. We were able to fully endow the scholarship in April of 2013. And our first student went to school on the scholarship in the fall. It's a perpetual process, so that scholarship is going to be there, we hope, for eternity. It's called the Second Chance, the Jack and Annie Anderson Second Chance Endowed Scholarship. I named it after my parents, who had very limited education, 8th and 12th grade educations, but never stood in the way of their children going as far as they wanted to go academically.
You were very lucky to have such wonderful parents. We're going to take a short break, and in just a moment we will come back and talk a little bit about Kenny's celebrity status here in Huntsville, Alabama, and maybe ask him for a little advice for young people coming up today. We're back now with Kenny Anderson, who's going to share with us what excites and motivates him every single day. Additionally, he's going to share with us one of his most poignant interviews, which unfortunately involves a former gang member.
Here's what happens to me on a daily basis. I wake up in the morning excited to be alive, feeling very blessed I have the opportunity to serve the city. And then whatever that means, I'm ready to do it and give it 100%. And that's what happens every single day.
You've got a little bit of a celebrity status in that you talked about your radio show a little earlier that you started, produce, and host. It's called Second Chances. Is there any particular story from that show of a particular guest that you would like to share? I know you can't play favorites.
Yeah, you know, the guest that really resonates in my mind is a young man named Richard Geis. And I interviewed Richard many years ago. Richard was a Crip of the gangs, Crip.
Oh, okay.
And I met Richard because Richard had returned to Huntsville after having been here some time ago, after living in Little Rock, Arkansas. And so he told his testimony to a group of students one Friday evening at Oakwood, and you could hear a pin drop. His story was so powerful. So after he gave his testimony, I went up to him and said, listen, I've got to have you on my program. And so he said, sure. The story that he shared was just so compelling and so rich with life lessons that people could understand.
Even though you have chosen to be in a gang, you can choose to get out.
You can choose to get out. And so I use this story oftentimes, and I do this presentation called Richard's Story. And I share with young people often about how the choices that they make have consequences. And even though you may be able to get beyond the consequence at the moment, there may be some other far-reaching consequence down the line that could create some problems for you.
So is that something that you would tell young people today to do, to give more heed to the advice of their mentors?
I would say, yeah, listen to your mentors, but it's hard for them to listen sometimes, and they tune them out when they're in the midst of having fun or they're caught up in the moment. And I'm telling them, listen to your intuition. If something says, don't go in that building, don't go in that building. If something says, don't get in that car, don't get in that car. If something says, go home now, go home now. So let your gut say something to you and listen to your gut.
That sounds like good advice, very good advice.
Yeah.
What thing would you tell parents of youth today would be the most significant thing that they can do to keep them from getting into drugs?
Yeah, that's a tough one. Again, I'm going to have to go after the parents. You know, prescription drugs are the most abused drugs in the nation.
By youth.
By youth.
And they're not prescribed to the youth.
No, we're talking about youth that are getting access to those drugs that their parents have been prescribed,
like
and that their friends
their
have.
parents' medicine cabinet,
Yeah.
or they're being sold on the street,
Yeah.
or...
Well, you know, you said it best earlier. Kids aren't dumb. Kids see what's going on. They know their parents are hooked on some medication or taking some medication to relax or to sleep, and they know the drug culture's out there. That's a big part of what's going on, and a lot of what drives parents who are dealing with these issues impacts young people as well. You mentioned partnership. They've got a great initiative. It's called Today's Youth, Tomorrow's Leaders. And they've actually taken a lead on actually educating young people and giving them a platform to be able to go into the school system and in communities and talk about prescription drug use and why it's having an impact on society the way it is. It's a great initiative.
Amazing thing. I saw something on social media that I wanted to bring to your attention. Matter of fact, it was on your social media.
Okay.
And it's a cute little thing that says, "A well-dressed gentleman is in the making." I notice a lot of young people today don't really take that to heed. They'll go to job interviews looking like they've slept in their clothes and things like that. Would you speak to the young people about the importance of the way they present themselves in the community?
Yeah, presentation is everything. It's what people see first. First impressions matter. First impressions count. And so I tell people this, especially as it relates to dressing for success. You always dress for the job you want, not for the job that you have.
Absolutely.
Always dress one step ahead. So you kind of look at the standard. What's the industry standard? And then you dress for that. But you always dress for the job you want rather than the job that you have.
I know that there's one other thing that you did recently for local charity that I want to talk to you about. And I was like, gee, I mean, what can he not do? But you were recently on the local Dancing with the Stars.
Well, Heels.
Tell me about that.
Sure. Stars Dancing for Heels.
Yeah, but it's sort of our local version.
It's our local version of the Dancing for the Stars thing, but it's called Stars Dancing for Heels.
Okay,
and
tell me
Heels, of
about
course, is a local organization that provides medical service and dental services for kids who are unable to pay for those services. Many of the clinics and health facilities are right on the school campus, so it really kind of neutralizes that need for a parent to come pick them up, take them out of school, take them across town and miss valuable educational time, and actually allows kids to walk right down the hallway, across the street or across the way, and actually get the services and then go back to class. It's a wonderful organization.
It is.
Fielded by volunteer medical professional, volunteer board that's very passionate, exciting. For almost 10 years, they've been out there doing this event called Stars Dancing for Heels, and it was one of the most challenging things that I've ever done. And the raising money part was easy. It was actually learning the dance. Yeah, and I did a combination samba rumba.
Well, there's two things I want to ask you about that.
Sure.
Number one, is your wife not jealous that you're out there cutting a rug with somebody else?
No, I mean, she was there. She came out and...
Okay, so she supports all your community endeavors.
She does. I mean, she's much more reserved. If you see the outgoing thing in me, she's as that much reserved.
So
she's on the other side of the spectrum. Yeah, we do.
Okay.
We do.
And the second thing is, did you win?
Yes, I did, because as a team, collectively, we raised money.
Should have known you would say that.
Absolutely. We raised $166,000 as a team of 8. And of course, there was a big money winner, there was a crowd favorite and all that stuff. Listen, I had a great time because what I did was I did a performance for young kids to be able to benefit from the services that Heels provides. And so I consider myself a winner in that situation.
Well, that's a perfect answer, and I would expect no less from you, of course. And I think that anyone that watches this show will also be a winner today, because, Kenny, you've given us some valuable insights. I can't thank you enough for sharing your personal story, your personal tragedies, how you've overcome adversity, how you've, impacted our local community. I would encourage anyone that has the opportunity to watch this segment to maybe catch Kenny on his radio show or on his television show, and maybe take a look at how he helps people to ponder the positive possibilities that await us all. Well, there you have it. The story of a young man who made his way all the way from New York down to Alabama and made a huge impact by helping other people find their second chances in life. Kenny Anderson truly shares positivity from his own life and his own experiences with others on a daily basis in a variety of ways. Join us next time as we pause and ponder the positive possibilities that await us all.